All right, so it is 10:06, and I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this morning. My name is Zoe Cooper, and this training is getting items into the hands of students and families. Today, we're going to be discussing student and school community needs, what parent and family engagement has looked like during the remote learning period, and sort of the processes that are in place right now for getting items into the hands of those folks. So like I said, my name is Zoe Cooper. I am a school partnership specialist with Communities in Schools of Chicago. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm going to let the rest of my team introduce themselves. If you want to give a little shout out to yourself or a good morning in the chat, that is welcome, of course. So Miss Davis, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Hi, good morning. My name is Kayla Davis, School Partnership Specialist.
Good morning. I am Joanne Flores-Dieter, School Partnership Specialist.
Good morning. This is Sukata Bells, she, her, hers, Senior School Partnership Specialist. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Katie Stizek, the school counselor at Volta. Thanks for hosting this.
Of course. Good morning, Katie.
Good morning, everyone. This is Robin Kelch. I am the Director of Partnerships at Communities in Schools of Chicago.
Good morning. It's Rob Stazak from Cleveland School.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Roosevelt Moneyham. I am the School Partnership Coordinator for Children First Fund, CPS's foundation.
Talia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Deidre Battle, Powell Academy Counselor.
Hello, everyone. I'm Talia, Health Partnership Specialist at Communities in Schools.
All right, so I am going to get started on just a couple of housekeeping items. I'm sure you've noticed that my name is in the participants twice. It's because I'm using my computer for visual and I'm using my phone for audio. So hopefully that doesn't get too confusing. But a couple of housekeeping items. If you are not speaking, please just go ahead and keep yourself muted. That's just to eliminate background noise and so that we can clearly hear anyone who is speaking. Just unmute yourself to talk and then mute again. If you don't want to unmute yourself, I know it can be difficult to interject in the middle of a conversation. If you want to just put your question or comment in the chat, Sukata is going to be monitoring the chat for us and we'll be sure to pause the conversation if a question goes unanswered. Another thing, if you are able, please rename yourself if your full name is not clear in your participant title. You can drop your name or your school in the chat for attendance purposes. If you're using your phone and don't have access to the chat, we're going to hold some time at the end of this session for you to speak your name. If you're having a technical issue, please go ahead and just use the chat function in Zoom. It's the little thought bubble icon at the bottom of your screen. Joanne is going to be moderating tech for us today, so if you have any troubles, she can go ahead and help you address them. And again, if you want to say something and don't want to just jump in, feel free to use the raise your hand function. There is an icon at the bottom of the screen. Also, if you hit participants and just hover over your name, you should be able to raise your hand and I'll be sure to call on you. And I will work to ensure that you are heard. And then, of course, we are all at our homes. We are understanding of interruptions and distractions. I'm sure you're going to hear my extremely vocal cat in the background at some point today. And we're just going to try and take it all in stride if anything comes up. So with that, we can go ahead and get started with just a little bit of a check-in question. So how have things been going? If anyone wants to speak, now is your time. Otherwise, you can put it in the chat. Just what are you feeling? Maybe a word that sums up the type of week that you've been having. I know this week is when I really started to hit a wall with working from home. Just didn't feel especially focused, and it was hard to rally myself this week. So if you're feeling the same way, I'd be happy to hear that.
We've just been trying to manage, this is Rob at Cleveland, just obviously trying to manage things, trying to meet our teachers' needs. You know, we're doing weekly check-ins with the teachers as far as meetings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, frustrations of parents like who have multiple children in the building because they're getting one teacher who's kind of doing a great job with this remote learning stuff and the interaction that's happening, and then their other teacher for their other student or other child isn't so engaging, I guess, and so they're frustrated with that and reaching out to Deb, our principal, and myself, and you know, it's hard to sit here and I don't want to call them battles, but you know, trying to you know, appease the parents and then keep our teachers also motivated in whatever capacity. You know, we're trying to do our best here. We've given out over 200 Chromebooks and iPads, primarily Chromebooks and things like that. So we're trying to get technology in the hands of the kids. Beyond that, I don't, you know, self-care, I don't know. I mean, I think we're all in a similar boat as far as that stuff goes.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Hi, it's Katie, the school counselor at Volta. Something I feel we've been dealing with this week is just a lot of like counseling or mental health referrals. And it's difficult to figure out, like, does the student need individual counseling? Like, should we recommend them for virtual counseling? And we have agencies in our community that will do that for free. Or do they just need, you know, a little bit of a tier 2 or lighter intervention? But then it's hard to figure out, like, who will be implementing the tier 2 intervention? Like, how does check and check out look in this type of setting? And so that's what we're kind of trying to figure out, is like how to support the students at a tier 2 and tier 3 level right now.
And I would say we have similar problems, you know, like just thinking like that, Katie. We've got a big problem with our 5th and 6th graders. Like our teachers are doing, you know, these Google Classroom things, and somehow I don't know how the kids are manipulating or whatever. They're like either using like a backdoor channel to like stay on these Google Classrooms, and they're you know, being vicious and disrespectful to each other, and then the parents are reaching out to us like, what are you going to do about this? And it's like, well, you're the ones that are in control at home. Like, I don't know what you expect us to do as far as intervention wise with those kinds of problems. So I don't know if you guys have any solutions or suggestions with that.
I mean, yeah, that sounds extremely tricky. I know this is like a brand new, not brand new, but a new frontier of, you know, unsupervised, mostly unsupervised technology use. Like, it's not a controlled environment like it can be in the school building, and students are definitely not existing in a vacuum. So yeah, I would certainly open that up to the group if anyone has any suggestions on how to sort of like mediate those negative interactions between students. Like, we're all ears for sure. All right, so if anyone wants to share how they're feeling like in this moment or in this week, or as we, you know, hurtle towards the end of the school year, definitely throw that in the chat. I'm sure there are many people here that are sharing in those exact same feelings, who have the same priorities as you and are dealing with the same issues. I'm curious to hear, and I heard a little bit about major priorities right now being like tech distribution, negotiating like tier 1 versus tier 2 counseling. Are there any other like large scale priorities right now that are sort of taking shape or that have emerged since folks started remote learning?
We're sorry to chime in again. I'm wondering
No,
if
that's
any
okay.
I'm wondering if any of other schools are dealing with this. Like the Aspen student contact tracker. We're trying to figure out like how that's managed in our school. Like at first we were going to start a Google Doc of like student, contact concerns. But we don't want to have teachers, documenting twice in Aspen and in this Google Doc, like their contacts and, their conversations with families. And so I'm just curious if throughout this webinar, or if anyone else has kind of suggestions on how you're managing the Aspen tracker.
Well, I've sent out.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Deidre from PAL. So I just wanted to add from that particular standpoint with attendance. And I think it's going very well at PAL. So what our administrative team did was assigned everyone who's not a classroom teacher to manage the Google Doc. And then the classroom teachers actually manage Aspen. So what that looks like would be like the SICAs are assigned to a particular classroom, could be the classroom where the child is who they are responsible for, or it could be some other combination of matching. And so at that point, when the teacher, let's say for instance, I'm actually on a call right now, so I'm doing two things. I can multitask, yay. But I am on a call with the 6th grade teacher. I'm in her classroom. And so my responsibility is to take attendance in her classroom in the Google Doc. And so there are some kids who have diverse learning needs in her classroom as well. And so I do address them offline, but my primary goal right now is just to take attendance and make sure the kids are there. The other part of the Google Doc was that all of us who are the assistants in the classroom were responsible for getting the parents' first names or responsible party, the emails of those responsible parties, be it the parent, guardian, grandma. We also had the student's email address, and if the student had a phone number, and then from that point, you take attendance. And then with the actual Aspen document, because I have access to the document, and some of the other teachers, like the EO coordinator and the case manager, like we all have access to the Aspen document, but we aren't required to do that. The classroom teachers are. So then they go into Aspen to complete that particular process. So it works really well because different people are taking care of that responsibility. So like for me now, I'm looking at my list of 2 kids who are not in class, and like I've harassed their parents every day, and every day the parent says they'll be there. So I'm going to continue to harass. And so, it's a part of what I do as well. And some of the teachers do call, but it's definitely responsibility of the assistant to call the parent and say, hey, what's going on? Do you have a Chromebook? And for me, if my kids are STLS, they get the Chromebook with the Wi-Fi hotspot and all of that. So, again, I'm taking attendance daily, in the Google Tracker, and then the classroom teacher does it in Aspen, I believe, whatever that increment of time is.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's super insightful. It looks like Janet at Palmer has a couple things to share in the chat. So it looks like they started with a Google Doc and then shifted to Aspen. Homeroom teachers track their own students, and special education teachers do their assigned students with them. And then a helpful trick is to do it during the week. So on Friday, you don't have to do the whole list, but we all know how difficult it can be to parcel out your work throughout the week. But these are really great ideas. And I just want to mention that Kayla just dropped a link to our agenda for today into the chat. So if you don't have any answers to these questions right now, but want to bring that back to your team, or you want to think about these a little bit more in depth after this, that is at your disposal as well. So that's going to guide our conversation today. But of course, the questions that we're going to be asking are visible on the screen. Does anyone have any ways that you're practicing self-care right now? I know for me, I just keep buying plants and hoping that it will solve all of my problems. So if anyone has any tips or tactics. I'm sure most of you know that Communities in Schools has been putting on self-care sessions, and that will continue to be a bi-weekly opportunity for y'all to take advantage of. But if anyone else wants to share how you've been practicing self-care or what your biggest hindrances to practicing self-care have been, I'd be happy to hear that as well.
Well, it's Deidre again. I'm like you. I buy plants and plant them. And so my mom is a big plant person. And so that's one person. And then my assistant principal is a big plant person. So we're all like, well, we're going to go here and get this and buy this and plant this. But the other thing that we do is we walk and we exercise. And so like we have Wellness Wednesday, you know, at my school. So I send out a something, you know, for the staff to do some kind of movement. Or yesterday it was like Taibo quarantine edition. And so, you know, just to keep moving, or meditation, or just something, you know, just to kind of get your mind away from what's really going on here. So
yeah, definitely. Wow, Taibo, I haven't heard those words in so long.
But you know what? Oh my God, I fell in love with him like when I first started on my journey. And so he's just always been my fall to person when it's like, uh-oh, things are going to the left. Let's get back to the right. And, it was kind of one of those things the other day, like, maybe I need to do a little more than walk. And so I looked for him and found a quarantine edition. So yeah, he's still, I was kind of surprised though. I'm like, he's still around, you know, publishing live, you know, videos as opposed to the older DVDs and whatever. So yeah, yep.
Great, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's Roosevelt from Children First Fund. I have been dedicating myself to 5 to 10 minutes of outside time every single day, making sure that there's time spent outside with nature. To Deidre and to, I think Zoe's point about getting plants. I've got a couple plants that I'm planting as well. And just making sure that I take a half an hour or an hour every single day to have a lunch, right? So step away, just kind of create some sort of a routine in all of this because it's so, you know, different than what our normal schedule will be. So just taking some time outside and making sure that I devote half an hour or an hour every day to just me and just getting away.
Yeah, taking a lunch is so important and such a luxury. All right, anyone else? Okay, so
Yeah, I've been doing some gardening with my wife and stuff around the house. So we've had some projects, and then, you know, putting in some wine there in the evening. So that's been helpful too.
I like your style. All right, so we're going to move forward to just like the big questions for today and sort of get into the nitty gritty of this discussion. But as we move forward, I encourage everyone to think about how Communities in Schools sort of fits into the grand scheme of everything that's happening in your school community, whether that be virtually or in person. But yeah, moving forward, we're just gonna get to some big questions and hopefully folks have some insight to share. And with that, we'll just go ahead and move on. So our first big question of the day, what items are students, families, other community members perhaps in need of most during the shelter-in-place order? And by items, that could mean basic hygiene care. It could mean food or meals. It could be menstrual products. It could be a tangible paper resource, perhaps something with a list of hotlines, things that people can access electronically if they are not in a safe environment during the shelter-in-place order. Have folks gotten specific asks for things like this? Looks like cleaning supplies, deodorant, shampoo and soap, of course.
We've had parents reach out to our friends of Cleveland asking for like money for food and things like that. And, you know, they obviously said that's not what our purpose is. So there are families, I guess, that are looking for food, and we're a location that gives out meals. And, you know, we've just tried to reiterate that, you know, that's available here at school, but that's been pretty much the extent of what I've heard from our families.
I'm receiving requests from teachers to check in with students. They're having a difficult time dealing with being at home. They're having a difficult time with their families. And I'm noticing that they really need someone to talk to or communicate with outside of their home.
So just like a listening ear or some external support outside of the household.
Yeah, is there like a hotline or that kids that you have where kids can call and talk to people? Because I know they're not really doing in-person sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a couple of different things in the mix. Hopefully you've seen the Communities in Schools resource guide. And if you access the agenda from the chat, it is linked in there as well. There is a tab in there that has a printable list of hotlines, text lines, and warm lines that are for students and families to utilize. Thank you, Robin, for throwing that in the chat. So the tab that you would want to reference is called Hotlines and Phone Numbers. And while there is a list in like an Excel format, we have also created a printable document. So if you have access to or if you are able to print that document and just sort of have it there, if your school is a meal distribution site or is distributing tech right now, that could be a good resource for you.
Thank you so much.
Of course. And if anyone else has been having like a similar issue, if you want to connect directly, the chat option is always there for you. You can chat privately or just put something out to the entire group. Oh, nice, Katie. Thank you for including the CPS food delivery options. That's great. Has anyone else gotten any specific asks for anything? So the main reason that I ask this question is because many of the community partners that are in our partnership program and a part of the Communities in Schools Partner Network have items on standby that perhaps they collected before the shelter-in-place order came into effect, or it's a part of their program delivery model to donate items like hygiene kits and things like that. But now like the channel to get that to students has been muddied. If anything, it's been blocked off. So I wanted to open this conversation up to schools to sort of get a little bit of insight on that as well. And if anything comes up, definitely access the resource guide, which again is linked in the chat, or if you have something that you think of that you think could be pertinent for other folks here, definitely throw that in the chat as well. All right. Our next big question is, are there items that students and families are typically reliant on your school to provide that they now have diminished access to, with CPS buildings being mostly non-operational? So I'm sure meals is the big one, of course.
So we have seen a little bit of a request from some of the parents, some of the schools that we're working closely with for just safe space, right? The schools operate as such a safe space for our students and families, and that need being gone, the building just being open until 7 or 8 o'clock to entertain or to provide a safe space for some of the kids has been a real need that we've seen drop off. Well, obviously drop off, but that's some of the things that parents have been articulating to us about a need for.
Great, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that isn't really one that I had thought about, but of course, super important, definitely. Anything else? Any anticipated needs that perhaps you or your administration has had conversations about? Yeah, nicer headphones for students to use for learning, sure. I'm sure there's families who are sharing one device amongst many students, amongst many family members.
We do have children who, maybe 3, 4, or 5 children in the household. And, with CPS, the student who's in temporary living situations may get a Chromebook, then another student may get a Chromebook. And so that might leave 2 students, or 3, depending, who do not have access at the time. And, our teachers all log on pretty much at the same time. So, when I talk to parents, it does pose a problem because some of them are like, well, I'm at wit's end because, 5 teachers are logging on at the same time, but I don't have, 5 pieces of technology. So that's the one thing that I hear. I do know during the school year, some of the girls will ask for hygiene products. So I wonder what the status would be. So I'll reach out and find out. None of the teachers have mentioned that any of the girls have said, or any of the boys, for that matter, have said that they need anything. But I do know we need technology.
All right, anything else? And yes, Rob asked a question that I'm sure multiple people have been wondering. Can I share the resource guide with my teachers? Yes, you can share that with teachers. You can share that with support staff. You can share that with parents. Definitely distribute that as widely as you deem necessary. But yeah, that is completely up to you.
And so following up on that question, I
Yeah.
actually did share going into our report card pickup, but now have the ability to utilize the website. And then you were mentioning there's a Word document. So can we put that on the website?
That's a really good question. It is a Google document and it is being updated pretty consistently since we add resources to the guide almost every day. And again, that document does get updated as necessary and as needed as we gather more information about hotlines, phone numbers, and otherwise. But I mean, it might make it a little bit easier that it's a Google Doc if you want to link that to your website. So I'm going to go ahead and say go forth.
Yeah, and I'm willing to maybe update it on the web, or have our technology coordinator to update it weekly on the website. And I feel like because we're posting children's birthdays and, parents want to see their children's names, they're going to go to the website where they may not, go to another staff member. So this might be a way to, disseminate that information.
Yeah, definitely. That's smart. I had not really considered that too much, but yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yay. Right. I'm curious, are most of the folks on here from schools that are currently meal sites?
We are.
Yes. Looks like we got a couple of yeses in the chat. Ooh, yes, lots of yeses. Great. That's good to know. That's good information for sure. All right. So, what has family and parent engagement looked like since the remote learning period began? So this can definitely be virtual since most of our work is virtual at this time. And since most of y'all here are working at schools that are meal sites, if you can speak to like what parent and family engagement has been in actually picking up meals, I'd be curious to hear about that as well. From what I have heard from a few of my school contacts and some of our school partners is that engagement has actually improved during this time. Can anyone echo that, or does that not really seem to be the vibe?
It's funny, some of our teachers were saying that the students have been traditionally good students in the classrooms are the ones who are slacking off in this medium.
Oh, interesting.
And on the reverse there, students who maybe weren't the best in class are becoming superstars now in this environment. So it's that's happened like in our 5th through 8th. That's been kind of a common theme that we've heard from the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. You know, parent and family, you know, the students, I think our frustration is trying to get more students on. And we have the same situation where some of the kids that really rocked it when they were in school are kind of slack. We're like, hey, what's up? This isn't like you, kind of following up with them. And then other people rise to the challenge. And then there's some kids that just have like checked out completely. Family and parents, I'm not at the school when they pick up meals, but I heard they're coming by. We're serving a lot of meals, giving meals and stuff. For me personally, I do 8th grade, and for family and parent engagement, our whole team is like, unless we're reaching out to parents, they're not really reaching out to us at all.
Sure.
You know, they're just kind of, you know, when we talk to them, hey, we're wondering what's up. You know, we've noticed that, you know, your child hasn't been on very much. Is everything okay? Oh, they tell me they're on every day. So, you know, the students are telling their parents, oh yeah, I did all my work. Yeah, I was online. And, you know, lo and behold, they have not turned one thing in. So we've been trying to put stuff in Aspen, so at least the parents will get notified that, hey, they're, you know, they haven't turned in a lot of stuff. So that's been our frustration, is just, you know, unless we're reaching out to families, they're not, you know, they're not helping monitoring or, you know, anything like that until, and even sometimes when you know, tell them what's going on, they don't, you know, they don't really help out. And, you know, maybe their situation that they're just unable to.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Similarly, I've heard from the principals similar situations that it's about a third. So they've got a third of kids who are totally checked in and doing all of the work, a third who are kind of in and out, bouncing in, have done a little bit of the work, but maybe a little bit more engagement is needed with the parent, and a third who have totally just checked out and they haven't heard from them since the shut-in order has been in place. I'm not aware of what parent engagement looks like right now.
So assuming that a lot of folks on this call are counselors or perhaps case managers, social workers, what has your experience been like with like remote IEP meetings, remote 504 planning? I know that there has been some push that every child who has an IEP now has to have a remote learning plan. Like, what has that process been like?
Well, I would have to speak for the case manager at my school, and I think it's going fairly well. Again, we operate in teams, and I think because we operate in teams, parents don't necessarily welcome calls from 10 different people, and so they tend to be more compliant, you know, with a lot of people interacting with them. So that enhances their cooperation. So because of that, for the most part, she's been compliant with meetings. So far, so good.
Good.
Yeah.
I would say the same. Our case manager is doing well. I think when this new information came to our teachers, you know, they're already doing the remote plan, and I think adding another layer to the paperwork for them is a little frustrating. But you know, they're superstars, so they're gonna be compliant and do whatever they need to, you know, whatever's in the best interest of their students. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else that people can think of? All right, then I'm going to push us to our final big question. And with this question, what does item distribution look like at this time and perhaps in the future? I'm actually going to pass this one over to Roosevelt from Children First Fund. So take it away, sir.
Thank you so very much. So right now, item distribution and everything distribution-wise is being handled at the schools where the food distribution centers. You guys are totally aware of that because most of you have responded that you are those food distribution centers. What we've been seeing is a lack of capacity around distributing anything else, unfortunately, at this time. We're worried about getting devices out there, getting connectivity devices out, the hotspots, the food that's being delivered to families every day. So what we've seen right now is a lack of capacity around providing anything additional than what we're already doing for students. We're hoping that will shift and that there'll be more capacity as time evolves, but we are not seeing that as of right now. That is essentially where we are with device distribution. We're looking obviously to get devices in the hands of as many students as we possibly can. That would be following up with the IT department, ensuring that we've double checked with schools and making sure that we're talking to principals about actual device need at this time versus perceived device need, making sure that we have followed up with beyond the STLS families, making sure that in some of the situations you guys mentioned, families who have multiple children, trying to make sure that we get as many devices out as we possibly can. That has been the push for the last 6 weeks. Going forward, I think that we're going to stay in that vein as far as making sure that parents and families are able to still acquire, you know, the food resources that they have at the school. Anyone who still is in need of devices, we're looking to, not actualize, we're looking to finalize that number and see exactly what a school may have said they need right now versus what IT thinks they need versus what they've already perceived. So it is trying to coordinate all of those parts and make sure that we've gotten everything for each individual school as closely aligned to the school needs as we possibly can.
Great, that's really insightful. I'm curious to hear what you're anticipating it looking like as we enter into the summer period. Are you anticipating like similar engagement and requests and needs as to what's been happening right now during the school year and perhaps over these past few weeks, or are you anticipating a little bit of a lull as we enter into the summer months?
You know, I don't think that we're anticipating a lull. We've gotten a lot of partners and a lot of external people who are looking to just be supportive at this time. So we're trying to make sure that we're, getting to them. I think there's going to be a shift as opposed to a lull. The shift is going to go from devices, I think, to now books, literacy, making sure that families have everything in the home that they need to actualize the remote learning plan.
Great. Is there any guidance you can provide, perhaps that we can relay to our community partners about what they just should not anticipate being an option for them, like definitely not being a physical presence at a meal or tech distribution site? Is there anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is not feasible at this time. Partners just going to schools or partners physically being on site without having permission from a litany of people inside CPS is not an option right now. Because of the close contact, because of everything with COVID. So we're directing everything to the district. We have to go through all of the chiefs to make sure that we have approval before anyone can go to a school and do any kind of distribution.
Great. It looks like someone was curious, are there hotspot options available for families who do not fall under STLS?
I do not know if that's the case right now. I know specifically about the STLS families. There is a push at Children First Fund around connectivity in general and making sure that we find hotspots and things like that, or maybe a partner to provide some of those resources. But at this time, I do not know that there's a push for connectivity devices other than STLS families.
Got it. Oh, I hear some church bells.
That's my parish.
How do families and schools let know CPS they need devices? I'm talking to a principal. There was a question at the bottom. Talking directly to a principal and articulating that to the principal. The principal should be in communication with IT department, and that is the way that we can finalize. That is the way that I've been told that we can finalize those numbers. So let your principal know if you need a device. Your principal will reach out to IT. They can compile a list and they can explain directly to IT how many devices they need, and then work with the IT department to get those in the building and get those resources back to students.
Any other questions for Roosevelt?
You know, I don't remember no questions, but I don't remember offhand. There was an email I sent to staff maybe about a month ago, and I can't remember the company, but at any rate, they do offer some sort of free Wi-Fi for parents if parents did not have that service before or something like that. So something like 3 months of service that parents could take advantage of. They would just have to call and qualify.
Oh,
so there's
perhaps
something like that.
Xfinity?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. There was an Xfinity program that offered Wi-Fi service at home for families for as little as $10 a month.
Yeah.
That I'm
Yeah.
not aware of. Yeah.
So Roosevelt, I'm wondering if you can share just like what a day in the life is like for folks over at Children First Fund. I'm sure it's just, you know, very chaotic, what most of us have been experiencing, but what have things been like over there?
It's been chaotic. That's a great word for it. I joined Children First Fund about 3 weeks before we went out on this
Wow.
on this break, and it has been an influx, right? An influx of good things, though. There are tons of people and tons of supporters who've reached out to us and are asking to be of support or provide resources. I think the hardest thing for us is just trying to find where alignment is, you know, trying to find and partner schools or the district. And then the other part is, you know, trying to get approval for some of these things is very difficult because we're all working so remotely and waiting for the email responses, beyond the fact that people are just so busy. So I think it's been chaotic, but in a good way. There are lots of people trying to help and trying to be of support. You know, nutrition has given out more than 8 million meals over the last 6 to 8 weeks. So there's been a lot going on, but it's overwhelming, but in a good way, because it's for the students, it's for the parents, it's for the work that we're doing is in support of the work that you all are doing at the campuses. So as much as it's hectic or chaotic, we really just want to make sure that we are as supportive as we possibly can to all of the people who are on the front line and all of the families in CPS.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was so uplifting. All right. Looks like there's a couple of things in the chat. I don't understand how the supplies will be distributed. Do we need to complete a request?
I don't think I understand what supplies you mean. Can you answer that for me?
I would agree with Roosevelt saying, like, I'm the assistant principal and the principal, so any information that comes to us, we try to get whatever we need out, whether it's technology or masks. You know, we had our aldermen reach out to us and put it out there for families, like if they don't have masks, to, you know, when they're stopping to pick up lunches, that they're available at the same location. But it's myself and the principal that pretty much are being whatever the liaisons between the community and our teachers. So we're communicating as much as we can and trying to get whatever resources we can for our family.
Ms. Buckles, I think that request that's something that you should send to your principal. Principals are able to find resources within the network, I believe, that can provide options for like emergency relief for families. We've seen a lot of requests like this. So I think you start with your principal for those requests, and the principal can reach out to people in, I would say, different departments, but they can also reach out to us if there's a need for something like that, and we can see if we can find a partner who may be able to supply some of those things for you.
Great.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other thoughts, ideas, questions? Yes, that's a really good point, Robin. So we at Communities and Schools are working really hard to understand what our community partners have, and then we are working directly with CFF to distribute if there's capacity as we learn more.
Yep.
Great.
I would also suggest, I would also suggest principals talking to network chiefs. So following essentially the chain of command, there just may be more information as they go up the line. If that makes sense. How do we contact? So I'll leave my email. I'll shoot everybody my email on here, but I would also I would again reiterate to start with your principal and let us go from there, I think.
Great. All right, so with that, we're going to move into sort of our final phase of this training, of this discussion. Are there any resources that your school is taking advantage of that others may find useful during this time? I'm sure there's a lot of overlap here. If there's anything that you come across in your work or your interaction with the community, with your students, with your families, something that they're taking advantage of that has been successful, if you want to pass that along to your school partnership specialist, we can make sure that that ends up in the resource guide if it has high capacity. Otherwise, if it's something that is timely, does have an approaching deadline, or is a bit more complex in its access points, then we'll make sure that that gets distributed to other folks in our portfolios as well. So just something to keep in mind. Are there any, yep, a list of food banks our families can go to? Yes, definitely. So if you access the Communities and Schools resource guide, I know I've been plugging this just so much, but it's been something that I've been working on a lot. So definitely at the forefront of my brain. There is a tab around food access. There's also tabs for things like utilities assistance, moratoriums on rent, things like housing, things like childcare. And again, that list is getting updated with daily regularity. So yes, absolutely. And we always try and include notes if there are geographic restrictions. If there's anything like that that could present a barrier, we definitely want to make that clear. Yay, I'm so glad to hear it's been an awesome resource. Thank you. Are there any other high need or gap areas that we could potentially help you address during this time or in the future?
Okay, so this is Deidre again at PAL. Hello.
Hi.
And so I just unmuted with my teacher, and she was saying that even though I was saying, you know, during the school year, some of our girls do need hygiene products, she's saying that yes, they have definitely communicated to her that they do need hygiene products, and some of her boys too. So
Okay.
what would be our next step?
Oh, that's a really great question. By hygiene items, do you mean like soap, shampoo, deodorant, or is it more like menstrual products or a combination of those things?
I would say a combination of everything.
Great. Okay.
Especially the menstrual cycle products, we want to make sure they have enough to last through, the summer, if at all possible. And that's really kind of my concern too. Like, people may be okay, or, whatever version of okay that is, but then as we proceed, things become a little bit more desperate and people have to make choices. And so you don't want, a mom to have to choose between feeding 3 kids and hygiene products.
Absolutely.
What does that look like? So, yeah, so if we could, access that, that would be really good.
Talia, do you want to chime in at all on that?
Sure, yeah. So regarding menstrual products, so I'm the health partnership specialist, so I work with our community partners that do provide health programs and services, which ranges from health education to physical
And what's your name?
services. Talia.
Talia, okay.
Yes, and so some of our health partners are health clinics, and their capacity has shifted as they're also working with patients, but they do have some menstrual products. I know Chicago Women's Health Center has reached out to us saying that they did a menstrual product drive, and they still have these products and are really eager to connect those to students and families. And then similarly, some folks have hygiene products like oral health hygiene products and just general hygiene products too. So I think hearing this feedback of that there is, student and family need is really helpful, because I think on our side, on the community partner side, folks are really feeling like, we have all them, they're stored in our offices or just boxes of them, and really not sure where to direct them right now. So I have been taking notes as well to, share with my community partners too, so that we can communicate to Roosevelt the services and products that our community partners have had available and just are not sure where to direct.
Yeah, well, we would love to take advantage of it. And for us, I'm thinking maybe someone could pick up the items from my school. Someone probably will be me, and then package the items, and then, with a marker, maybe put the kid's name on it, and then they can pick it up during lunch distribution. So the distribution person would probably be relatively easy, because the kid would just walk to the building and pick it up.
Yeah. And hopefully that would mitigate some, added contact with other folks, which of course we're trying to avoid with the social distancing measures. Does that sound like it would be feasible, Roosevelt?
I'm sorry, you guys. I was just typing that my connection went out through most of that. I did not hear most of the response. Can you ask the question again?
So I think the question was if we had, a community partner that had something like menstrual products that they had collected before the shelter-in-place order went into effect. Could someone from the school go to that location, gather the items, appropriately package them for students to pick up when they get meals?
I think that's going to be difficult because capacity, again, I don't know essentially how many people we have in every building, but I think having someone leave the building to go retrieve retrieve something else and bring it back to the building is just another ask for principals and assistant principals, and I think they're stretched pretty thin. I definitely can ask, whether or not that's feasible, but I would think that that's not something that we would ask principals to do, just because of capacity right now. If there was a way that partners could get it to our warehouse and we could provide a list of schools, there may be something that we could do then. But again, capacity is seemingly the biggest need for us right now. The biggest hole for us right now, because we're unable to fill or unable to get everything out that people wanted to donate to us right now, essentially.
Sure.
So I have to say, I really don't understand what that means. And I guess this is, me in my own bubble, because
Yes,
I feel like we're all on payroll still. And so, again, like at my school, I'm willing personally, to go and get the items. And so, while principals, I wouldn't expect, a principal or assistant principal to come, because of course they're manning the building, but then there's so many more of us on staff. And again, we're still on payroll, and that part hasn't changed. So it kind of bewilders me that it would be hard for someone to come and get the items. And that's my bubble, you know, like, huh? So.
I agree with you, but you know, from a district perspective, I don't think that we would ask for anyone else to come in because only the essential staff are being asked to come into the building. So it's essentially working with that essential staff to do stuff. That is something that I cannot answer though, because that's above my pay grade. But I think, I don't want to speak out of turn, but you know, asking people that we have right now to complete that, I think is a little bit of a stretch. But I think if there are other ways that you guys can you know, provide that, then I would say go for it.
So what about PAL? Can PAL come? I mean, PAL is willing and we want to serve our students, and you know, we don't want them to lag with anything now and or in the summer. So we can't speak for other schools, and not that we want to negate their needs, but you know, we're ready to go.
Is that a question for me, Ms. Battle? Because I can't answer whether or not you guys can do that. I can't give permission or anything like that.
So would I ask the principal? How does that work?
I would say if there's a resource that you want to get that is, you know, an external resource, I would definitely ask your principal and, you know, tell your principal to ask a network chief whether or not that's a route that you guys would be willing to take and whether or not that's a route that you guys could take.
Okay.
So why is we having this conversation if we can't do nothing?
All righty.
Can you repeat the question? You're cutting out just a little bit.
Oh, that's my coworker. I mentioned that I go into her classrooms to take attendance. So she's questioning what's the status, and you know, how do we, you know, maneuver some of this, and how do we achieve our goals? Basically, is what she's saying.
Because if we can't do anything for the summer, can we do something for the fall?
And her question is, if we can't do anything for the summer, can we do something for the fall? Like something.
I would, yeah, I'm sorry, please.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question, and I'm sure this conversation feels like we're just presenting like barrier after barrier, even though you clearly have a willingness to do something and to make something happen and to access a resource. And I apologize, Roosevelt, I definitely don't want to speak for you. It sounds like the situation that Ms. Battle is describing is more of like I don't want to say a small scale need, but wouldn't require like bulk distribution. So would that be something that's a little bit easier to connect, that they potentially wouldn't have to go through CFF to acquire?
So I don't think, I think I understand a little bit better. I don't think anything, I think with your principal's permission, I don't think anything necessarily needs to go through Children First Fund, if that makes sense, for small scale stuff like that. You know, if you want to get resources for hygiene kits or things like that, if you have a resource, I think that's a conversation for your principal. You know, we have this resource at this entity, I want to go pick it up and I want to bring it back as an available resource for our students and families. I think that's a question and a conversation for your principal, because I know if it goes through the network or if it goes through the district, it becomes a larger scale question, if that makes sense.
I have a question. So say you want to get hygiene products or whatever, will you share a list of resources with principals so that if they have someone that is willing to go pick them up, that they can make that connection and go?
Ditto.
Because at this time, the principals don't know where to reach out to get these things. So will this be shared so that they will know, and then they can make arrangements with that organization to pick up the supplies?
I think this is a question for me. I think this is for me as well. I would say that if we have a resource that will allow, that provides that resource, if we have a resource that provides something for a need, then we will communicate that to the network chiefs, to the principals. and they will delineate that information down to you guys, I think. But we don't have anything like that right now. If we had if we had something as far as hygiene kits for mass distribution, we would be, bringing that to the network, letting them know and trying to get those out as soon as possible. If that was an available resource that we had, then absolutely. I would, pass that information down to principals, but if that's something that you guys have, I think you should pass it up too. Am I making sense?
No, so it sounds like it's a little bit of a two-way street. So if CFF has something that is available for bulk distribution, then that information gets passed down to network chiefs and then to principals and then down the line further. And then conversely, if a counselor or a case manager finds out about a resource, then they should take that to the principal if it is something that is for their school and not for bulk distribution. Additionally, if they find something that is for bulk distribution, they could pass that up the line to the principal, to the network chief, and then to CFF. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct.
Great. Okay, perfect. Hopefully that helps clarify things for people and presents like a feasible pathway to get stuff into the hands of your students. So for like a specific need, like hygiene items, like menstrual items, that's sort of where like communities and schools comes in. That's what we're here to help you with. We're here to help you mitigate those needs, to address them appropriately, to connect you to community partners that could help get those items into your hands and thus into the hands of your students. So yeah, my biggest suggestion is going to be to reach out to your CIS school specialist. You can definitely reach out to Leah if there is a specific health need that you're facing. Your school partnership specialist can put you in contact with them. And then, of course, access the resource guide. Is that helpful for people? Does that sit well with folks?
That's fine.
Great. We got a little sticky there. Just want to clear things up. All right, so it is 11:07, so I've kept you too long, but I just want to do one final plug for the resource guide. It will be in your emails every single day with the Monday memo that gets sent to you as well as other folks in your building, like administrators, so they should have access to that as well. Again, distribute that throughout your school community to parents, to other folks in the building like teachers. There is a user survey on the front page of the guide under the guide details tab. And we are actually trying to figure out who is actually looking at the resource guide. Are there any gap areas that we could help address? What are you looking for when you come to the resource guide? So if you want to give that a little bit of a plug as you distribute it throughout your network, that would be excellent. Otherwise, thank you so much for your attendance today. I'm going to hang out as well as my team. If you have questions, if you have any final comments, hopefully we got everyone with attendance. Kayla, was there anyone that you missed with attendance?
No, I think we got everyone.
All right, well, thank you so much everyone for your attention and participation today. And thank you, Roosevelt, for being such an amazing sport and very insightful. We very much appreciate you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.